Well, RNA is known with magnesium that it will cleave much more divalent magnesium, or raising the temperature accelerates the strand scission. Remember, they like these hot-cold cycles, wet-dry cycles? That would destroy this. Remember Cronin's wet-dry cycles that are purely acceptable to him of 130 degrees centigrade? This thing's toast. This RNA is gone. When they don't want hot-cold cycles, the Earth is perfectly room temperature, 23 degrees centigrade, 25 degrees centigrade, pH 7.5, just pristine, no free ions around, because we know this stuff decomposes. And so here's from Benner's own paper. He's showing that you can get these branching occurs. He shows that you get these wrong attachments can occur. So how much of the 2' 5' linkage do you get instead of the 3' 5'? Benner doesn't tell us. Other people tell us what they get. Benner doesn't tell us. He just says a substantial fraction is the right linkage. Well, what's a substantial fraction? Well, if you look at other literature, here's myrillonite, oligonucleotide synthesis, because others have made oligonucleotides on different clays, like montmorillonite clay. And this person got 67% of the 3' 5'. So in other words, he's got 33% of the wrong linkage. Here, 75 to 80% of the monomers are 2' 5' linked. So he's saying here you're only getting 20% of the right linkages. The rest of them are the 2' 5'. What is a substantial fraction? We don't know from Benner. Benner left it a mystery. But let's just say he had 66%. Let's say 2/3 of his linkages were 3' 5'. That means 1/3 of his linkages are the wrong linkages. You need three of these bases along DNA to define an amino acid in a protein that's going to be made. So 1 out of every 3. If 1 out of every 3 has long linkage, then 1 out of every 3 letters doesn't work. That means you don't even have any words. Statistically, you have no words. This work by Benner is nonsense. And then he says, we're not sure that the 2' 5' doesn't work. Oh, yes, we are. There are papers like this paper here, which shows that 3' 5' you have to have this because the 2' 5' acts like siRNA. Steve, if you had watched my former video, this is what you would have seen. Well, what happens if there are 2' 5' attachments? What would happen? Oh, look at there. Look at there. Look what happened. You make siRNA, the 2' 5' linked nucleic acid exhibits very unique hybridization properties to complementary RNA. While the 2' 5' linked nucleic acids form a stable duplex with RNA, they weakly hybridize or not at all to the complementary DNA. Well, that's interesting. The duplexes formed between the 2' 5' linked DNA or RNA and the 3' 5' RNA adopt an A-form helical structure. This suggests that these duplexes may be used as siRNA to inhibit gene expression. They form siRNA. What is that? Small interfering RNA. siRNA degrades messenger RNA after transcription, preventing translation. These are products which shut the biochemical process down. They shut it down. The impurities there shut it down. This is what I'm talking about. You get all these impurities, and they shut down the process. The process is shut down by these impurities. You start with the pure material. You didn't make this stuff. You bought it. You started with the pure material. You're doing an A-B condensation polymerization. Your monomer has both the A and the B side on it. And you get branching, and you get a substantial fraction of the 2' 5'. You have no magnesium ions around because you've totally washed this off. It's great human involvement, and it's fictitious. And then you get something that's not useful anyway. This is surely how life did not form. And plus, there's no code there. You have no code there. But anyway, you push people on this, they won't even talk to you. They'll stop talking about this. Where did the ribose come from? You tried to get ribose to form. There was a lot involved and you got junk. You ended up buying the ribose, or Krishnamurti did. Then how'd you make the phosphates out of that and then put the bases on there? And there was a huge amount of human involvement. No spontaneity in that one. And then how did you make the 5' hydroxyl? How did the 5' hydroxyl get triphosphorylated? You never explained that. You bought it. You bought it. Then you washed these glasses with hydrogen peroxide. Then you wash them 10 times with water. Ultra pure water to get rid of any traces of magnesium ions, along with RNases, which indeed you should get rid of, but any traces of magnesium ions. And then you say, well, then it's spontaneously formed. Yeah, you set the whole thing up. Nucleosides are formed by a reaction between ribose, phosphate, and RNA bases. Where'd you get those ribose phosphates? You mean those ones that Krishnamurti had to do all that human involvement chemistry that we went through? That stuff?
The beauty of this model is its simplicity. It can be tested by high schoolers in chemistry class, mix the ingredients, wait for a few days and detect the RNA.
Oh, really? Just mix the ingredients. It doesn't have to be pure. How can that be when you have a condensation polymerization? Try doing it with impure materials and let me know what happens. And try doing it in the presence of magnesium ion. Let me know what happens.
Whether the problem is solved, I guess we'll know. I suppose many of the big paradoxes have been solved, including many of the two mentioned.
Many of the big paradoxes in origin of life have been solved, says Steve Benner. Well, nobody has shown a method to make the homochiral versions of lipids, amino acids, nucleotides, or carbohydrates in a prebiotically relevant manner. That was by your own testimony. You said it to that reporter. Nobody solved this. Dave says they've solved it. Nothing has been solved in a prebiotically relevant manner. Steve Benner, you discount all of Sutherland's work and people like him because that's too hands-on, although you like to cite it and use it. Even he hasn't made these homochiral. He's had a couple of them where he can control relative stereochemistry, but not absolute, and that's only with massive human involvement, the type you don't like, the 18 holes of the golf ball playing by itself. Nobody has shown the mixtures found in meteorites or interstellar space could be useful for synthesis because they've always come as mixtures. They've never been able to use them in synthesis. Nobody has solved the mass transfer problem in chemical transformations from small molecules to a cell. How much material do you need to go from one end to the other? You lose material at each step. That's the mass transfer problem. I brought that up in my video. Never been solved. Nobody has shown a prebiotic route to the polymerization of the amino acids, the nucleotides or carbohydrates with the required regioselectivity, stereoselectivity, and stereospecificity. Carbohydrate polymerization is unfathomable without enzyme direction. Half of the amino acids need both protection of the side groups and all need activation of the carboxyl group. Nobody has solved this in water. Nobody solved this side chain problem anywhere, in any solvent for amino acids. In the case of DNA, the phosphate needs activation. In the case of RNA, it's the same, but the 2' 5' linkage, which forms in 30 to 70 or 80% yield, acts like siRNA. And RNA is stable for weeks at best in water. Primed RNA has never duplicated itself, never more than 10% of itself. So the RNA world hypothesis is a hypothesis in crisis. Nobody has solved the code problem for ordering the nucleotides, or saccharides, or proteins, if those came first. Nobody has come close to making the higher order structures needed for the simplest of cells. Nobody has ever shown that lower enantiomeric excess mixtures could facilitate the requisite high-yielding biological-like chemistries with minimum of heat release, thereby mitigating the need for chiral-induced spin selectivity. You never address chiral-induced spin selectivity because you can't, because you didn't know about it until I told you about it in Israel, and then you had no answer for it. Nobody has explained the requisite interactome and how the requisite interactome could be prepared. When you have the non-covalent interactions, how's that for a paradox for you? Nobody, even if given all the 4 classes of molecules in any desired order, could prepare even the simplest of cells. If I gave you, Steve, all of the molecules you wanted, all of the 4 classes of molecules in any order you wanted, could you prepare a cell? And the answer is no. Nobody. Your answer to that is no. If it's yes, show me. Come on Dave's channel and talk about it. Come on my channel. You won't come on mine. Go on Dave's and talk about it. You'll probably never go on his channel again because whatever you say, I'm going to check. Nobody has come close to synthesizing or even suggesting how to synthesize the simplest of cells in a modern laboratory, let alone providing a sufficient suggestion on how the universe could have done it in 100 million years. Why do I say 100 million years? Because that's from the cooling of the Earth after the heavy bombardment to where we have evidence of life forming is less than 100 million years, maybe even much less than that. Or even if you've given 14 billion years, how would that form? Give you the universe lifetime. And when the origin of life research is hypothetically afforded all the carbohydrates, lipids, amino acids, and nucleic acids in homochiral form and asked how would they go about building a cell, the origin of life researcher gives no answers. It's just crickets. Nothing. They say nothing because they have no idea. How's that for paradoxes, Steve Benner? Can you answer one of those for me? You said most of them have been answered. Go ahead, answer one for me. Those are the paradoxes I presented in my video, the video that you said you watched.
From the 10 hours of video or so that I have watched, because I would not consult James if I wanted enlightenment about the chemistry behind the origins of life.
And you can't answer these paradoxes. And what you put forth is a bunch of falsehood, absolute falsehood. Good for you, going on Dave's video. Good for you. You happy about that? So there's huge intellectual dishonesty has been put forward. What would you call somebody who puts together falsehoods and puts them out there like that? Would you call them ignorant?
Or lying or stupid or perhaps all three?
The ridiculous choice of Steve Benner in aligning himself with Dave Farina. Steve Benner's critique of my video series, which demonstrates that he never watched my series, a fact to which he later confessed. Steve Benner's actual origin of life research and how it suffers from the excessive human involvement chemistry that he himself criticizes. His chemistry only forms traces of material that he himself would not and cannot ever use. His chemistry therefore demonstrates its relevance in prebiotic chemistry. Steve Benner is among the ultimate propagators of hype to the press, and that his claim that many of the big paradoxes in origin of life have been solved is both false and intellectually insulting.
Going back to Richard Feynman, the indispensable physicist, who says that science alone teaches the danger of belief in the infallibility of the greatest teachers of the preceding generation.